everyone, welcome. We are talking today all about procrastination. So we're just going to jump right in, okay? And specifically, I was actually very curious for myself. I'm personally not such a procrastinator, although I will say I procrastinated this live a lot. But I actually have always wondered, is there a real difference, brain-wise, between people who procrastinate and people who don't? Always wondered that. So I kind of looked into it, and I found something that I was really fascinating, which is that people who are not so good at control, like procrastinators, actually a part of their brain work differently than people who did not procrastinate. So what do I mean? So there's this part of your brain called the amygdala, okay? So if anyone is familiar with brain science, the amygdala has to do with the part of the brain that deals with fear and aggression and things like that, anxiety, a lot. And then there's also something called the anterior cingulate cortex. And the anterior cingulate cortex, that is the part of the brain that's known to be involved in initiating action, right? So people who do research on OCD, they actually see that there's hyperactivity there, right? Because, OCD can actually involve excessive action. But that's obviously not our topic today. But what's interesting is they found that in people that procrastinate, there was actually less communication between the amygdala and the anterior cingulate cortex, meaning that fear actually overtook a lot of people's abilities to take action. And so pretty much what happens was there is this breakdown in communication in people that procrastinate between the part of their brain that has fear and the part of their brain that takes action, which is to say that perhaps one of the reasons people might procrastinate is because of fear of the outcome, okay? And we'll talk about more reasons. And I did try to do some anecdotal evidence, some people in my life that procrastinate, I'm like, really? Is that something that you resonate with? And a lot of them said yes. I don't know if you resonate, you can say something in the comments. But, if it's very interesting to see this. And I think it's kind of twofold. On the one hand, it's comforting for people that procrastinate because they can a little bit blame it on their brain. On the other hand, it's which came first, the brain or you? You know what I'm saying? Either way, the good news is that you can rewire your brain, right? If you've ever heard of the concept of a brain being plastic, that's a real thing. Your brain is plastic. It can rewire. And the problem is, though, when you're rewiring a brain, right, that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And so it's going to, be very difficult. It's going to be really hard. And the more you do it, the easier it'll become. But you have to realize you're basically fighting against your nature. And you're fighting against your brain. You're rewiring neurons in your brain. That's hard work. So I think it's comforting in one sense. It's also empowering in another sense that you have the opportunity to, fix it, right? Change it. But it's also, okay, but it's going to be hard. And it's a good realization. And it's interesting because this topic of procrastination, when someone wrote in about wanting this topic, so OKclarity, they wrote I've tried all the hacks and none of them work. And so I think I will give you strategies, but before you can get into the strategies, we have to shift the way we think about it. If you're the type of person that's just so accustomed to procrastinating, if you've wired your brain that way or your brain's born that way, whatever it is, it's the reason it's so hard for you to follow all these hacks is because your brain is just not wired that way, and you have to accept first that it's going to be going a little bit against your nature and it's going to feel difficult. Now, here's the other thing. If you're the type of person that procrastinates, but you don't really, it works for you, you work well under pressure and it doesn't, you miss your flight or whatever, then, go for it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, that type of thing. This isn't for people if you procrastinate and you're fine with it. Some people thrive on that, So if you thrive on procrastinating, you don't have to follow anything. But these are for the people that, really would like to not procrastinate and really have tried all the hacks and none of it works. And so I think the first thing is to have the shift in that there is something in your brain that is wired in a certain way and you have to work to rewire it. And it comes from all different reasons, right? And obviously these are all emotional reasons because it's in the brain. And some people, I even polled people on my Instagram page, why are people afraid? Why do people procrastinate? A lot of people, it comes from a place of overwhelm. Maybe they're not confident in what they're doing. Perhaps it's a not enjoyable task. And, people said in the really big high ticket items in life, there's this fear of change. So a lot of this comes down to like those types of emotions, which really speak to this idea that it's like really wired deep. So I want to discuss, just for the little time we have together, and this is by no means comprehensive, but there's just a few strategies for procrastination, okay? And here's one really important one, and this is key. This is key, and that is reduce the number of decisions that you actually need to make throughout the day. Why? Because every decision you make actually takes from you energy. Like literally, it has like emotional energy that's taken up in you for making decisions. And if you're going to wake up in the morning and be like, what am I going to do today? And every single little thing, like, like I have an hour break for lunch today. Should I go out for lunch, or should I do this work I had, right? Should I eat this? Should I eat that? Should I exercise today? Should I not? What should I do now at this time? If you keep working like that, it's going to be really hard for you to actually get anything done, because you're spending all of your energy making decisions that really don't need to be made that day, right? Like, yes, sometimes you do need to make decisions, but trying to make that many decisions in a day is going to like really deplete your energy, and it's going to leave almost no time left to actually do the tasks that you need to do. And so I know it's like advice that you're given all the time, but this is why you really need to decide these things in advance, right? So different things, like if it takes you forever to get dressed in the morning, pick out your clothes the night before. Like little things like, okay, decide which days of the week you're going to exercise. Or, what I like to do is I have this notepad on my phone called Brain Dump, where basically, everyone has this, probably a million tabs open in their brain. And what I like to do is dump them onto a paper so that I can kind of ignore it from my brain. I can get rid of the clutter in my brain, and then it's all somewhere. And so I write down. So I usually write down everything I have to do. Let's say I do it a week or two at a time, depending. So let's say I do a week at a time, everything I need to get done. And then I start taking those things and putting them into days. So I'll put it, okay, this should go into Monday. This should go into Tuesday. This should go into Wednesday because I have that here. And then I'll switch things around as they come up. And if something doesn't get done on Monday, I'll move it to Tuesday. But like I have a basic idea. This way, if I end up with an hour-long lunch break, right, I know, hey, did I get these tasks done? No? Okay, so you know what? Eat lunch for a little bit and then do this rather than go out. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that really help, because you are reducing the number of decisions you need to make by making decisions ahead of time. And what you're also doing is you're actually creating habits in certain areas of your life, and that's going to boost your efficiency for sure. And again, it prevents you from draining your energy, because you're not thinking, should I do this, should I not? And then you're actually able to focus on doing it. Again, there's more that needs to happen to not procrastinate, but that is for sure a start, is make decisions in advance as much as you can so that you're not depleting your energy. Okay, that's one. Strategy number 2, fascinating. Okay, so I've spoken about this strategy in the context of some other concepts. So I think we spoke about it in terms of imposter syndrome, but this is a concept that is from Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, and that is called, okay, just quick synopsis. Viktor Frankl, he wrote, his seminal work was Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he created a therapy called logotherapy, which basically is therapy through meaning. It's the type of, I'm a coach, but it is the modality that I most appreciate and really try to utilize. And so he has one strategy called paradoxical intention, and we've used it before. But for here, in order to apply it to procrastination, I actually found this cool strategy, and I was like, hey, that's so Viktor Frankl. And it's called the nothing alternative. What's the nothing alternative? So there was this guy, he was a novelist, he wrote novels, his name was Raymond, what's the last name? Chandler, I wrote it down, okay, Raymond Chandler. And pretty much he wrote for a living, he was a writer, and he would write every single day. Obviously, like when you're a writer, you have to spend hours a day writing. So he wanted to spend 4 hours a day writing, which is obviously a long time. But he had a lot of time, a lot of difficulty, because he had a specific word count that he wanted to get done every day, and it was really hard to actually get it done. And so he came up with this method, and it's basically paradoxical intention. What do I mean by that? It's the nothing alternative. He set aside 4 hours every morning, like these 4 hours, I'm going to work. And if I don't work, here's the ultimatum. I can't do anything else. What does that mean? That means if I don't want to write, I don't have to write. But I can't go on my phone. I don't know if there were phones when he came up with this. I don't really even know when he came up with this, actually. I don't even look at the year, but it's a good one for us now, right? Can't look at your phone. You can't do other work. You can't read a book. You can't read an article. You can't do anything productive. Maybe you can look out the window. You can lay on your floor, but like you can't do anything else. And eventually you get so bored that you just do it. Now again, that might not work for everyone, but I do think it's a really cool strategy, and it definitely could work for people, right? Because if you really are like very strict on it, that you actually can't do anything else, then you're going to have to do it, right? Like you don't have to work on what you have to work on, but you can't do anything else. Like you're going to end up starting to work at some point. And listen, if you want to try this out, I would not recommend starting with 4 hours like he did, because that's like a lot. I don't know. It's a hard time to sit. I actually think 90-minute blocks are the best amount of times, and I'll tell you why. When you are in the zone, okay, when you're like sitting and you start to get work done, so very often, you know, you're in a zone and you could get way more done. You're already in the right headspace for it. And so it would be silly to only give yourself like 10 or 20 minutes to do one small task, because once you're in the zone, you'll probably have time to get a lot of the things done you need to do. So give yourself 90 minutes to actually, you know, get the task done that you need to do, because I think that's enough time, but it's also not too much time that you're going to get bored or just like really burnt out. So I would think 90 minutes is probably ideal. And again, you just really have to like be very intense with yourself. Like I either do the task or I don't do anything. And yeah, try it. If anyone tries to, let me know. I'm curious, because I've never tried it. I'm going to be honest. Like I said, I'm really 10. My brain is just not so much wired to procrastinate. And so I've never tried this, but you know, everyone procrastinates something sometimes. So maybe I'll try it next time. Okay. So most important goal that you have tomorrow, 90 minutes, do it or do nothing. Okay. Now, hand in hand with this is actually adjusting your environment. Oh, there's one more thing I was just thinking I wanted to say before we move on is there is this hack, and I didn't want to use this because I think it's very common known, and I wanted to give you a little bit of different ideas, that this like 5-minute task idea where just do something that takes you 5 minutes. Like if you know it's going to take you 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, do the tasks that are going to take you less than 5 minutes. And then once you do that, like then you get in the zone, then you start doing things. And that could also work for this 90-minute block. Like maybe it's not just one task, maybe it's a couple of tasks, and start with the shortest one, right? Some people say, oh, start with the longest one, you'll get it over with. But I actually think starting with the shortest one is helpful, because then you get yourself to sit down at your computer, like if that's what the task involves. But like, let's say you have to crank out a whole, I don't know, you have to write 5 pages for something. I don't know, you know, an essay. I don't know. First, you could say, okay, I'm going to respond to like my inbox. I'm going to clear out my inbox. Then I'm going to do that, right? And like sitting down to clear out your inbox is actually probably a little bit of an easier task than writing a 5-paragraph or a 5-page essay, sorry. But once you do the short thing, then you're sitting there, you know, so that's helpful. And like I was about to say, it goes hand in hand with adjusting your environment, because you want to make sure that you're getting work done in an environment that's conducive to working. It's conducive to what you want to get done, to your tasks, and that you're not going to procrastinate in as much, right? And so sometimes most people, I think, work better in quiet environments where there aren't a lot of people to get distracted from. Most people probably are more productive if their phone is on do not disturb mode, or if it's on the other side of the room, right? Or like put it in a drawer, so like you actually have to get up if you want to like check it. Just like thinking about what your environment looks like, especially if you're going to put this together with the nothing alternative, right? You definitely want to work in an environment that's conducive to the nothing alternative. Like if you're working in a place with so many distractions, like you might not even keep your word on the nothing alternative, and that sort of defeats the purpose, right? So definitely you want to adjust your environment appropriately. Make sure you're in a good place. And like the truth is, I mean, people say, you know, a cluttered space is a cluttered brain. I don't necessarily believe that that's true. I mean, I often work in cluttered spaces. I'm just not the neatest person in the world, and like I still manage. But I will say, working in a neat environment definitely does make you feel calmer. And there are some times where I get to work and I'm like, I have to clean up first because like this is just too much for me to like even look at. So it could be clean, it could be pretty, whatever it is that gives you like the energy to get tasks done, go there. if you can. Some people like noise, you know, or a little bit of noise even. So that's fine. Find your place. And just one last strategy. Again, by no means is this extensive. There's like a million ideas for procrastination. And we didn't even touch so much on like time management, which is very much tied to procrastination. That's a whole nother thing though, I believe. But I think the last one, you know, I actually asked around, like, what's your number one hack for procrastination? It's interesting. I asked a high school student this question, and she said, you know, the way I don't procrastinate is like my parents, like my mom always like will just like ask me like if I did a task. And I realized, you know, accountability, that's a huge thing. Accountability is big in the world of procrastination. And for sure, you know, in any task. But I think, you know, when you have a deadline, whether it's in school or at work, so you have a deadline, and so yeah, you could have accountability, someone checking in on you, but maybe it's not as important then, because like you will eventually have the pressure. I think when you are working on your own dreams in life, it's actually much harder, right? There's this quote, a goal without a deadline is just a dream. And if you want your dream to actually become a reality, right, it's interesting. I think the statistic is something like less than 1% of people who say they're going to write a book actually write a book. Why is that? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but one interesting thing is like it's very hard to follow through on your own dreams when there's no deadline, there's no pressure, no one's forcing it. And so you really need to take ownership, and a really, really helpful way to do that is with some kind of accountability, right? And it's so interesting, like even in my coaching practice, I see with certain clients, like a lot of times I'm just talking them off the ledge. Like they were like so fired up yesterday or whatever it was, about this business that they're starting. And then it's just like, I remember I actually had this last week. I was talking to a client. She was super fired up about her business. Fine. We had all these plans going forward, whatever. And then we were communicating the next day over WhatsApp, and she said, yeah, so this person at work was telling me about someone else who has a similar business to the one I'm trying to create. And like, I'm thinking maybe I should like speak to them and go in with them. And I'm like, whoa. Like, you're not following through on this dream. What's going on here? Like, you wanted to go into this business on your own for a reason. And we talked about like, you know, her desire for mission and all of that, and like to really have control. And it was just so interesting because like so quickly when it's your own dreams, it's so easy to give up because, you know, no one's necessarily checking in on you. And it's like, I'm not like this like superwoman or anything, but all I was able to do was just like hold her accountable. I'm like, wait, this is not what you wanted. Like, what is it? Like, maybe it is, maybe it changed, but like, I think you want to build your own dreams, right? And she's like, wait, you're right. Like, I don't even know why I was considering that. Like, it just came and whatever. Anyway, point is, right, in terms of, and that's not even just procrastinating a task, but even procrastinating your dreams, right? Procrastinating doing things, right? The amounts of people I speak to that they're like telling me all these goals that they have for themselves, you know, whether it's like this, you know, most people, everyone says, oh yeah, I really want to do this. Like, I need to get experience first. Like, I just need to do this first, maybe in a few years. And a lot of that could be imposter syndrome talking or whatever it is, but a lot of it's procrastinating. You're procrastinating your life plans, and for whatever reason, a lot of times it's fear of failure, it's overwhelm, it's not knowing the next step. But I think so accountability is so important. So whether it's a friend, a coach, a therapist, a parent, a confidant, mentor, whatever it is, having someone to hold you accountable, especially for your own dreams, is going to help tremendously with, you know, procrastination. And so anyway, I just want to end by saying, know that it gets easier, because if you're the type of person that's brain is really wired to procrastinate and you really, really put some things in place to help you not procrastinate, it's going to get easier, because what you're doing is literally rewiring your neurons, and as they're rewired, right, you're going to have to work a lot less hard each time. And, you know, it's going to get easier and easier and easier. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Again, we just scratched the surface, but I'm always down to have a conversation about procrastination. So happy to speak to any of you in the DMs, and have a great night.